back to another episode of the Higher Level Podcast. So tonight, myself and James Dillon, we're going to be going over the recent Cagewarriors cards over the weekend. That was 135 and 136. And then we're going to be previewing the main card of this weekend's UFC pay-per-view. First of all, James, new Higher Level hoodies. I like them.
I like that.
Aye, they're pretty cool, man.
A bit different.
Aye, look cool. So we'll kick things off with Cagewarriors. Obviously, we'll jump right in with a fight in the prelim card for Friday. So that was Federico Pasquale versus Paul McBain. Obviously, what was your thoughts on the fights and the way that fight went?
So we didn't really know much about the Italian kid other than he was 6-0. He looked not too bad. There's the Italian guys coming through now. Generally the standards pretty high. There's a bunch of them at Cagewarriors. They're pretty good. I was quite shocked watching it. I thought Paul would be comfortable with the guy. I don't think the guy's fought outside the Italy and stuff, and Paul's been competing at Cagewarriors at a good level. Paul's an exceptionally good fighter. He's beat some good guys. He's a massive amateur record as well, and beat good ones at amateur as well. So it was like a hard test for the Italian kid coming in and having Paul as your first guy. And I was shocked that Paul looked. He looked a bit off right for the start. He was doing a couple of things that he was throwing kicks and missing with no setups and stuff like that. And eventually, obviously, he got caught with his feet together, and I think it was a jab that might have dropped him. And the guys kind of came down on top and closed the show. But Paul's come out on social media this week and said he'd get knocked out a week before, I think, holding pads. He'd been kicked in the neck anyway. And that definitely kind of looks what's caused that performance. It looks like he's had a concussion a week before, and because I've actually cornered Paul before. I cornered at his last Cagewarriors fight, and I've seen most of these fights. I've refed him fighting, and he's a tough boy. I've seen him taking big shots, and I've actually seen him beat guys just by being tougher than him. And normally he's very good at coming out and establishing his jab, and he builds a lot of his game off his jab. He's got a very good jab, and he just never got going on Saturday night. So the concussion thing makes a lot of sense for me when he comes out and says that. He's also a very honest guy, Paul, as well. He'll know he's not going to come out with excuses or whatever, and that looks like what's happened. The concussions caused issues with his performance, and when you get concussion like that, shots that you would wear pretty easy affect you in a bigger fashion, and I think that's what's happened with him. So hopefully he's going to take a wee bit of time out and off his sparring anyway. He'll still be able to train like rolling and pads and get back out and correct stuff, because he's one of the best guys we've got in this country. He's a good fighter, man. It was just unfortunate, man, but it's the sport. Good debut for the Italian kid. He's now 7-0, and he's in the featherweight division at Cagewarriors is brilliant.
Yeah, and I mean, for Paul himself, is it just a case now? Obviously, he's going off some losses and stuff like that, but is it just a case of taking a bit of time, getting back in there and establishing himself again? Because he's more than capable of getting in there and going on a good run, and still the UFC is an attainable thing for him. Is that just an important thing? Is it a case of just getting that winning confidence back?
The first thing I need to do is address that concussion. So he shouldn't be sparring and getting knocked about the head too much. But he can definitely beat anybody in that division at Cagewarriors on the night. Like anybody right through the division, he's got the ability to do that. The Hendon fight, I had him a round up. And then he kind of made a daft wee decision in the second round and gave up his back. But he's more than capable. I don't know what age he is now, so time might be against him, but he's definitely more than capable of going on a run. Like, I think he's been on a winning run at Cagewarriors before. But he really needs to address that concussion thing first and foremost, and then no rush back. And and maybe look at maybe not even fighting for 3 months or something. He can still train and keep in shape and then go for there. But he maybe have to make a couple of adjustments with how he's training. I think that there's some very, very good guys up in Aberdeen and in different areas. They've got very, very good Thai boxers up there. They've got access to good jiu-jitsu guys up there and stuff. So I don't know if he maybe needs to look at just putting everything together a wee bit better, and being around about guys that are going to push him a wee bit more in terms of a variety of sparring partners. He's sparred at Arrows quite a bit before, and he's a very capable guy. So I don't know, he'll know better than me, to be honest. I don't know his situation, but first and foremost, he needs to deal with that concussion thing, man, because that can cause major problems later on.
Yeah, perfect. And moving up on the prelims card, we had Adam Shelley and Steve Hooper. Again, thoughts on this fight? I
was impressed with both the Shelley brothers. They're Chris Fields' team KA. And Dylan's been raving about these kids for a while. Like when he came over, he's like, these guys are good. I think I actually met them at Cagewarriors. We were doing one of the lockdown ones. I'm sure I met them, but the both of them look very good. They're obviously a very good team, and they just look like they're going to cause problems in their respective divisions. So good performance, man. And I don't think it'll be long before you see both of those brothers on the main card, getting fights against some of the more kind of well-known guys in the divisions.
Yeah, as a credit to Team KF, they are really, really starting to. You're seeing the work of obviously Chris Fields and Tom King, the fighters that are starting to come through now.
You can see it's just the environment they've created there. It's like a right, there's like a right team environment there. They're all want each other to do well, and they're all there for each other. And it crosses over that stuff. You can see other teams, it's not like that. There's a lot of negativity and bitchiness and stuff like that. But they, what Chris and Tom are doing over there is you can see it a mile away. Like they're very much watching from the outside, and you can see what's happening. Their guys are all doing well. They're competing well. They're taking hard fights on big stages and doing well. And it just looks like everyone's kind of coming together for the guys. You know what I mean? Which is it's good to see, considering not just the work they put in, but how they go about that work. You can tell they care about what they're doing. They're not just in it to be famous or to make money or for reputation and shit like that. They're doing everything absolutely right and how it should be done.
Brilliant. And then headline the card, we had headlines for the prelims. We had bantamweights, Edward Walls and Liam Gittins. Just again a run through on the fight.
It's a kind of typical Liam Gittins fight. I think he's outside of my own fighters, he's my favourite fighter at Cagewarriors. He's so he never has bad fights, that kid. You could see the way that he came out 100 mile an hour and just started throwing. He looks like he's improved at Next Generation as well. They had a great weekend again, across both nights. And it was just an exciting fight. Walsh is a hard guy to put away, obviously. I cornered Aiden against him, and Aiden is very good at finishing guys, and Walsh defended stuff really well. But Gittins was impressive, man. He's no massive at that weight, and he came out and just put it right on Walsh, who's probably more athletic than him. He's so kind of tenacious, Liam Gittins. He's just right in your face for the first bell, and if he's not punching you in the face, he's dragging you into these scrambles, or he's getting to your back and punching you hard for the back and stuff. It was a good fight, man. Gittins just doesn't do boring fights.
Yeah, and obviously we spoke about the featherweight division, so moving into the main card. So the main card is a good mixture of obviously Cagewarriors veterans, UFC veterans, obviously two featherweight fights in there. Kicked off with obviously former featherweight champion Dean Truman and Giuseppe Regueri. So we'll just get through this card. We'll start off with obviously that fight. Again, just give me your thoughts on it.
A good fight. It was a good fight to kick off the main card. Again, didn't know too much about the Italian guy. Truman is has in the past been a very, very good fighter. It was a competitive fight. It was back and forth. And I think a couple of fights back, Truman looked like he was definitely on his way out. I don't know if he actually retired at one point, but
yeah,
he gave a good account of himself at the weekend. Man, it was an exciting fight. They both hurt each other, and they were both kind of pushing each other. It was well placed on that card, man. Because it was a high level fight. There was some of the fights on the undercard were not mismatches, but it wasn't matched as well as that fight was. And it was a good fight.
Yeah, and then that leads us obviously the next featherweight fight was Milad Ahadi and Antonio Sheldon.
Another good fight with two guys kind of stepping up in level. There's just one very, very big moment in that fight, and it was Milad caught Sheldon with I think it was a left hook. Maybe a minute in, and it dropped him heavy. Like it couldn't have landed any flush. I think he countered I think he maybe countered the right hand, but they were throwing at the same time, and it proper spun his head. Dropped him heavy, and in all fairness, the kind of Sheldon instincts kicked in, and he started wrestling straight away, and Milad stayed and defended. But if he never shot there, if he never got hold of the legs, he could have probably got punched out. But he done well to stay in the fight. Sheldon, he showed heart and a lot of resilience. It was proper days like there. And when he came back in into space after the wrestling exchange, that you could see he'd lost a wee bit of the speed of his step and a wee bit of spring, and his shots looked a wee bit slower and stuff like that. But it was still there's still some nice exchanges in it for both guys. Milad looked good. He looked like he'd improved a wee bit when he fought Keir. He pretty much beat Keir by being bigger than Keir. Keir had moved up to bantam. Milad kind of had a bit of an upper hand in some of the fence clinches and stuff just because he was bigger. But Keir actually outstruck him in large spells of that and forced Milad to wrestle him. So he looked like his strikings came on a wee bit. He'll be a good. I think he's got a young kid him as well. He's a good addition to that featherweight division there. It's another kind of young guy that's got time to develop. I don't know too much about the AJ Sheldon. I know he's like a good fighter under Martin Stapleton, who's a very good coach. And I know he's one of the coaches at their team, and I think he's a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. So it might just be back to the drawing board for him. But it was that one big shot just changed the dynamics of that fight. And like I said, in fairness, a lot of guys wouldn't have recovered for that shot.
Yeah, and takes us up to sort of the main event, obviously, Skabinski versus probably one of the most touted guys in the UK at the moment, Justin Burlinson. Good fight leaving into it. Obviously, Burlinson's got a lot of experience, especially in the amateur ranks. Skabinski is an experienced pro. Did you have Burlinson winning this fight going into it? Obviously, did get the win, but did the fight go as you thought it would?
I did pick him to win it before it. I'm a big fan of his, man. I've liked him from the amateur days. I think he's an excellent fighter. He's very, very well rounded. He's slick with his striking and stuff like that. He's another guy. I think he got hurt quite early. He looked at one point. He almost looked at on his feet, and he came back. And the difference is when Burlinson came back, he still had power. He was still very, very dangerous. And he put the pace back on the post and eventually got rid of him. So I thought Burlinson made hard work of it. If I'm honest, I thought he was going to be too slick for the guy. I think I picked him to win on points, maybe a late stoppage. He got kind of hurt and then got dragged into a bit of a dog fight with the guy. And it turns out he was a bit cleaner and hit a bit harder than the Polish guy who seemed to tire a wee bit. So it was a good fight. Both guys hurt and stuff. Burlinson overcoming some trouble and coming back to win, but there looks to be some issues with his defence there, man, because he obviously had to fight on the Dana White's contender thing, and he got put to sleep with a shot in that one. So you'll need to watch that moving forward and maybe try and shore that up. But he's got so much potential. That kid, he's absolutely brilliant. Offensively, striking, his wrestling's good, his takedown defence is good, his jiu-jitsu is very, very slick and stuff as well. So it was a great main event. Like, yeah, if you want back and forth fights and guys digging deep and coming back to win and stuff like that. And the only problem I have with, not a problem, but if I was coaching them, I don't want my guys having fights like that for what they're getting paid. Do you know what I mean? It's like, there's a time and a place to have those fights where you're going to get damaged and it's taking months or years off your life, and you want to be getting compensated for it financially, and you want people to see it. I don't know what the viewing figures were like on Friday night Cagewarriors, but the arena was empty on the Friday night. You don't know how many people's watching on Fight Pass, but he was definitely not getting paid enough money on Cagewarriors, and no disrespect to Cagewarriors, to be having a fight of that stature. That's different if you're in the UFC and you're getting a fight of the night bonus and you're maybe making 50 grand as well. Do you know what I mean? But it's the kid's an exceptional talent, and he's got a big future.
Well, you said something there about that, because it looked, and I saw a lot of comments on social media about that, about the arena looking full, which is unusual for Cagewarriors, because they normally pack places out. Is there anything you can chalk that up to? Is it just one of those things, timing?
I don't know, but it's maybe just who was on the card, because the Saturday night was absolutely mobbed. I don't know if there was more local boys on the Saturday night, more Manchester-based guys and stuff, but it's hard to say, man. I remember one of the boys that trains with us went to the International Fight Week, and when he was there, the UFC had a show on the Friday night, a show on the Saturday night, and when he was in Vegas for Fight Week, he went without tickets and stuff like that, and ended up getting a ticket for the Friday night show. And it was BJ Penn versus Frankie Edgar, I think, and he's bought like a $60 ticket. There's absolutely nobody there, and somebody's came and moved them for the $60 seats right down to the front. Do you know what I mean? It's a weird thing. And I'm like, I can't believe you got to watch fucking BJ Penn was absolutely dog shit that night. It was the night when he was jumping about in a mad stance, and Frankie Edgar just absolutely snapped him. But it's a weird thing, man. But the Saturday night was absolutely rammed. So I don't know if it's down to the ticket sales or whatever.
It could just be Friday nights are not as good as Saturday nights for putting on MMA shows, because for the most part, MMA shows generally run on Saturdays, don't they?
Most of them, I think, man. I think maybe the Friday nights, like, you're finishing work and stuff like that, you're going to go home and get ready and then head out to some show. But I don't know.
Right, we'll talking about Saturday nights. Let's move on to Saturday night. So obviously we'll kick off with Manny Akpan and Connor Hitchens. Obviously Connor's been up at the gym training, so you know Connor well. Good first round. It was close. Felt like Connor edged the first round. Would you agree with that?
It was close, man. Again, Connor's a massive prospect. He was a guy when, I think at one point he was 8-0 or something. I think he's lost his last two, but he was a guy a lot of people had kind of earmarked for big things. I think he's travelled and sparred with all the kind of better guys running about featherweight and lightweight and stuff like that. And these guys always talk. So he's a massive prospect. That kid, he's big at the weight. He never seems to get flustered and stuff. And it was quite an exciting thing to see him finally get into Cagewarriors. You know what I mean? Like, let's see what this guy can do. And at the time, you're thinking this is another potential guy that can run at the title there. Well-rounded young kid. And then obviously Manny's an exceptional talent, completely different for Connor. Freak athlete. Doesn't do a lot of fundamentally stuff very well, but what he does do is very, very good at. And I think he's smart enough to push into that style. You know what I mean? There's no point teaching certain guys like him to move the way you're your kind of textbooks teaches you to move and stuff like that, because he can get away with it and he can do stuff that the majority of people can't. And he's obviously a guy, I know both of the guys. Connor come up and trained with us before. His teammate Chris has been up at ours multiple times. And then Manny, obviously, his first loss had been to Kia. So watching it, I thought Connor was going to be far too much for Manny. I think even seeing how Connor kind of sparred up at ours and stuff, he's very much a kind of go forward pressure guy, but imposing himself and stuff like that. But if you look at the fight, he's came out and they've ended up in that clinch. He shot into the body lock and Manny's hit like a beautiful judo throw and landed right in mount, and it landed heavy. I don't know if it's winded Connor or something, and Manny's bounced an elbow off his head and cut him. So straight away, kind of Connor's behind, and it was a big moment early on in the fight. So he's done well to kind of get back into it, and it was pretty competitive that first round. He probably did edge it, and I actually thought like that's it now. He's got through Manny's one shot, like Manny's opportunity, and then he'll start taking over now, because Manny looked tired as well. Coming out of round one, I thought, right, Connor's got this sussed, and then obviously there's been some more scrambles and stuff. Connor shot. If we look at just the finishing sequence, which is fucking all over the place, and it went kind of viral. He's shot for a very, very long distance. He's overreached, stretching his arms and stuff, and Manny's sprawled on it heavy. And as he came out, I think he launched like an uppercut and maybe missed, and then went straight into that spinning kick, and it probably couldn't have landed any flusher. It's obviously put Connor out, and it's one of those things, man. It's the nature of the sport. It's that unpredictability versus somebody who's very, very well skilled and stuff. And Manny's a dangerous kid, man. If your eyes on the right and you miss that, and he's spinning like that and it connects with you, it's going to cause you problems. So it's quite upset for Connor, to be honest, man, because
it's one of them. It's like the curse of the commentator as well, because I think it was Brad Wharton had said that there's only 30 seconds to go, not much else will happen, and then of course, do you look at the fact that obviously Manny missed weight as well? Does that play into things?
It is a factor, that, man. There's stats out there about, and it's not going to change anyway how that finished, but there is stats out there that suggest that the guy missing weight, about 90% of the times, the guy missing weight is going to win the fight. And there is weight classes for a reason. I can't really comment on why he missed weight or anything like that, but it wasn't a weight thing that made that spinning kick. Do you know what I mean? It might have affected some of the wrestling thing, but Connor's not like a small featherweight. He's a big kid, man, big frame. So I don't know what weight the guys would have been on the night. It was more maybe a lapse of concentration, but he definitely took his eyes off him for a split second. I don't know if he panicked a wee bit. There was a technical mistake with the distance that he shot from that made everything else a bit easier. And the whole plan we had for when Kia fought Manny was to get close to him, and it wasn't involving. It was just to sit inside that kicking range, but to have enough balance to pull it away when the spin came. So when he did spin, Kia would push off his lead foot and just let the leg kind of sail past him, and then he would step in and re-engage. And just to keep that kind of mental as well as physical pressure on Manny, just not allow him to breathe and give him the space, because he's one of the kids that give him space, he'll definitely he'll highlight you, he'll spin and he'll jump and whatever else. There's a bit in, I think, the first round where he tried a spinning back fist. It was like a triple spinning back fist thing he done. He's been fucking right across the cage. It's not stuff you're going to deal with in the gym, that.
Aye. It's one of the things, isn't it? It can look bad. It's like Michael Pereira at times, or Michelle Pereira, what's his name. It can look beautiful when it works, but sometimes it looks so uncoordinated, and it can look horrible when it doesn't.
it is like that exactly, man. It either looks desperate or it looks like they're a genius. So the triple spinning back fist thing it was chaotic, but then you see him hit that sprawl, throw that uppercut, and go straight into that spinning wheel kick thing. Capoeira kick, and it looks like a genius. Do you know what I mean? So it's one of those things that, unfortunately, you don't see that on highlight reels for a while.
And so the next fight we'll go into is Liam Malloy and Ben Rees. Now, obviously, the fight itself for the 26 seconds it lasted. How did you feel about the matchup in this fight?
I think if you look at the records, it was, if you take away the skill sets, I think it looked fair on paper. Like similar number of fights, maybe. Both of them have got under 5 fights.
Malloy, I'll just check actually. Malloy, after that, now 5 fights, and Rees 8 fights. So you're talking 7 fights for one guy, 4 fights for the other.
That good fight, man. It's just Malloy's very good. He's one of the guys. I don't want to use the word special, but he might be a special fighter. He's very, very good.
Yeah, and then we'll jump up to the obviously fight headline. We had a guy, veteran Mike Stanton against Alexis Fontaines. Again, another fight that didn't go the distance. It was a finish for Mike Stanton. Mike's been around for quite a while. What did you make of the performance?
He looks better now than he's ever done. He was a bit of, not a journeyman, but he was a bit hit and miss for a while. He's a tough guy, man. He looks like he just causes you problems everywhere. Him, he reminds me of guys like Matt Brown and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? Not like the veteran thing, but they're tricky and they're just constantly in your face and dangerous everywhere. So it's good to see guys like him having runs when he's like a guy that's paid his dues over and over, and he seems to be doing well. I don't know. I think he's at ASW in Manchester, so he represents a good team. But it's good to see guys like him just not dipping out. Do you know what I mean? Like he's been up there for a long time and he's still turning up and still winning fights. Yeah, and
he's grappling's really, really good. He grappled Kieran Malone, didn't he?
Aye, so he's doing stuff like that. But I think originally he was known as a puncher. So he's obviously adding to his game and stuff like that. It's good for him because he's not like a guy who. He's not like a guy like a Liam Malloy or some of the guys we'll talk about in a minute who just stand out there. He's just like it's almost like workman-like. He just looks like if you're in a pub and he's in it, he's probably the toughest guy in the pub type of fucking thing.
Or the bouncer.
Aye, or the bouncer, aye. He seems like that. And they guys need to get the respect they deserve, man. They're proper fighters, and that's what you see there.
Aye, and jumping on for Michael, obviously moving on to the main card again, another really good main card, and it was a good fight to kick it off. Obviously, Luke Riley against Jack Elgin. Luke Riley moving to 3-0 after the win against Jack. I thought that was a really well matched fight as well.
Yeah, that was. I think over the whole weekend, that was the fight I was looking forward to the most, man. And you have to give the kids respect for taking that fight against each other because they're both at pretty much at the same points in their career. They're both aiming for the same thing. They could have took easier options than that fight, and it goes to show how smart Ian Dean is putting the two of them together this early on in their career. And it was a good fight. Both of them look like every new one a modern day MMA fighter to look like. They look comfortable everywhere. Obviously, the striking was exceptionally good. Eglin started pushing a wee bit more towards wrestling later on after and stuff like that, and you're getting to see the takedown defence and stuff like that. And it's an exceptional good fight. And the thing is, with being so early on in the career of both those kids, it shouldn't make too much of a difference that Eglin lost it. He'll go away and he'll learn from it. Like he'll pick up so much for that loss, because I think that kid had a big run at amateur as well and hadn't lost in a long time. And he'll go away and he'll get better for that. It was a great fight. And then again, you talk about the kind of where you're placing fights and opening up the main card on the Saturday night with that was again smart on the party. I don't know if it's Ian Dean that puts the running order together. I imagine it is, but it was a good fight, man. Really good. If you need people,
it was definitely good. I would imagine Ian does. He's doing all the matchmaking. He probably does put the running order together. You would think anyway, but and then on for that one, obviously that was a fight kicking off. But then for us up in Scotland, Rhys McEwen against Sam Spencer, a guy we've seen before, but the last time we fought a Scotsman was actually Paul McBain at featherweight. So the fight itself, I mean, it was a good first round from Rhys. Got top position, held that. I had some questions about the constant commentating, constantly talking about stand-ups and stuff like that. What's your thoughts on that? Because to me, it's like, and again, this is a layman's point of view, so you can disagree and tell me I'm being stupid here, but Rhys looked like he was at times waiting for Sam to make a mistake in the ground so he would pounce on something, which ultimately happened in the third round. To me, how do you differentiate that when two guys are on the feet and one guy's waiting to try and land a counter shot or something like that? And do you think fights should be getting stood up, or should the guys be staying down there and it's the guy on the bottom, it's his job to get the feet back on the ground, back off the ground rather?
It has to be both guys, to be honest with you.
Right.
You can't have somebody just lying on top of the other guy doing nothing, especially in a position like top half guard, which is one of the better kind of positions to hit for and stuff. There is a balance there where if you make space, it is easier for the guy in the bottom to start getting up on his hip and getting underhooks and wrestling up and stuff like that. But you can't go back to the days where you're just having somebody blanketing you, just taking you down the line on top of you and running the clock. So when the ref's saying you need to work, he's not in that situation. He's talking to the guy on top. Like you're in a dominant position. You should be hitting. You should be. Rhys was maybe like try to advance to like the arm triangle or something, but it's hard for him as well. If he feels like if I go to hit and Sam's going to explode up now, I think the referee was a wee bit too quick with the first warning and he started chipping on quite early. I think there was maybe 3 warnings, I think, in that first round. And I think there was another fight later on the night, actually, where there was something like that happened. He might have stood somebody up for mount, actually, but I think if you're in top half guard, you need to be trying to get to mount or the back, or you need to be hitting. It's a bit different if you're on a full mount position or you're on the back, obviously, because you're closer to finishes and stuff there. But the ref did seem to go pretty early. Like he didn't give him a lot of time, and then and that's probably made Sam just do less on the ground. Sam can just he's got to stand as well if I don't move. So he's maybe thought I'll just stay here, and then the onus is more on Rhys to try and move. And then when he shifts his weight, he could maybe try and get something happen to there. But it was a bit strange that he said something that early. I don't know if and this happens. I don't know if Sam's teams maybe watched some of Rhys's fights and just went to the ref and said, "Look, he's going to lie on top of me. He's going to get to position. He's going to sit in my guard or whatever, and he's going to do nothing." Like it's gamesmanship, do you know what I mean? That does happen. Like we have done it before with certain things where guys maybe stalling against the cage and stuff like that. So it happens in every sport. Like if you don't have a word with the ref or even bring it up at the rules meeting and stuff like that, it will definitely play a fact. But if you remember watching Rhys at amateur, he's exceptionally good at the top positions. So he's winning a lot of amateur fights with one takedown. You get one takedown, stay on top of you in that position, and then he wins the round, 10-9 round. And it looks like he's not kind of advanced that on for the amateur to the professional game. Which the good thing with this fight is that he's not a daft kid. Him, he's going to look at that fight and he'll be honest enough to say, I could have done better, and this is what I can work on. He got a good enough opponent in Sam that it wasn't going to get. Sam was never going to beat Reece. Sam's fought. I think he posted something the other day saying he 32 seconds of cage time in almost 5 years. So he hadn't fought in 3 years. Before that, he had fought in 2 years. He got stopped to a cut with Paul. He got the jaw breaking back in the day. He's got a lot of mileage on him. And then Reece is still relatively fresh in terms of mileage. He's not had that many pro fights, no big gaps off. He was fighting during the lockdown and stuff. So I actually thought Reece was going to stop him round 1 or 2. But so the fight's been a very, very positive thing for Reece if he uses it right. I don't think he'll go away thinking that it was brilliant that night or anything. I think he had a bit of scare in round 2. And he's had to come back and he's obviously got the win. It was important that he got the stoppage, I think. Because the third round was relatively close other than the control and stuff, but I'm pretty sure he'll go away and make adjustments because referees will be telling him that he needs to work. In a 5-minute round where you're allowed to elbow and stuff, it's a bit different in the amateur rounds where it's 3-minute rounds and you can't elbow.
And just on the finish from Reece as well, because obviously Reece has got on top in the third round after, like you say, that scare in the second round where Sam actually looked really good in that second round. He looked really loose and comfortable, and considering obviously he was lying on bottom most of the first, but I feel Sam's kind of just thought he needs to get back to the feet, he's got to do something, and that when he's tried to scramble up, the quickness Reece took the neck I thought it was quite impressive. What did you think of the neck taking, how fast Reece managed to go onto it?
It was quick, man. It was really quick. That's what the chokes are meant to be like. But there was a bit when you have back control like that. If you're the guy in the bad position, if you're Sam, he leans away forward. He separates his back from Reece's chest, and it's a terrible idea. That when you have back control, you actually sometimes want to press into them a wee bit and keep it tight where you defend the neck. And Reece was obviously very, very quick to the neck, and he's got a good squeeze on him, that kid. So it was a nice quick finish. It was more of a technical mistake, I think, on Sam's part that led to it going back to the mat. He seemed to have his takedown defence on point round 2. Yeah, and then round 3, Reece has got that takedown when Sam never defended it right. And then the kind of writing was on the wall there. If you can't get up straight away, as soon as it goes past that 30-40 seconds, then it becomes that battle on the ground again. And again, Reece was probably needing the finish just made it definitive because he get hit a wee bit in the third round as well. But I had him. I thought it was going to go to points. I had Reece winning 2-1. Yeah. But you can't trust the bloody judges. So it's good for him to get the finish. It'll be good for his confidence and stuff. And hopefully he goes away, has a look at the tape and realises what's needing work. That's the worst I've seen his striking look. Again, I like the kid. I like him. I've known him since he was a wee boy, but I've never seen him off balance like that so much, or he just didn't look comfortable there. I don't know if...
Can you chalk that up to first fight in a massive show like Cagewarriors, bit of nerves in there? Is that potentially part of it?
There's definitely that. I think he's also coming off quite a bad loss when he fought Luke Westwood. He came off quite a hard loss. I don't know how he's took that, but it looks like he's either striking or he's wrestling. There's no blending. Yeah, like he looked completely different for the two kids that were on before him at the same weight. Like they kids looked like they were blending everything really well. Whether it was offensive or defensive, they looked. You couldn't tell when they were striking or wrestling. It was mixed up. Yeah. And he's got the ability to do that, Reece. But I don't know if he's maybe. I don't know if he's maybe trying to implement too many different things. He's needing to get his striking on point and just work with Dean Riley, I think, and just be like, right, you take control of my striking. I'm not going to hit pads with this guy. I'm not going to do this with this guy. You're in charge. I'll do what you need me. You mould my style to suit the rest of the game, my attributes. You've been maybe the longest, whatever. You've got more experience at the coaches I'm working with. And just commit fully to that. It just looks like he's, like I'm saying, it looks a wee bit bitsy. It looks like he's got a bunch of different ideas, but again, he tried that spinning back fist. He fell over a couple of times extended. He was throwing kicks with no setups. And it's stuff that I know for a fact he knows better. I've seen it. I've sparred with him back in the day. I've seen him spar and stuff like that. And I don't know if maybe he's getting away with stuff in sparring. That's when you go to try this in a fight, you won't get away with, and that's on your team. Your team has to prepare you for everything in a safe sparring environment. And Dean Riley's capable of doing that. He's been about the game a long time. He's been running about good people. So he's maybe need to just get control of everything with Reece and be like, this is how this is working. Yeah,
and we'll move on next again. The next fight in the card, Adam Cullen and Dye. Again, two guys coming in like the fight that kicked off the main card. Two guys coming in with undefeated records, both 3-0. Obviously, and at the lightweight division, Adam Cullen gets the win. And again, like we spoke about fights before, this one it went 14 seconds. So there's I don't know how much analysis you can do. I guess you can only speak about Adam Cullen and the finish. Obviously, it was a TKO punches. So I guess what did you take away from the fight? What were your thoughts on Adam Cullen and his performance?
Right out of the traps. It started very much like his teammate Liam Gittins actually just came out punching big left hook. Obviously, I don't know too much about the level that he was fighting, but you can only go on what happened. And Collins came out. It was measured as well. It wasn't like he was spazzing out. He threw a couple straight shots, then backed the guy up, and then pinged him with that big left hook. So again, it moves him on in his career, gets the next win and stuff. But you've not really learnt much about that kid from that fight, other than definitely don't try and punch with him when your back's against the fence, and keep your right hand super glued to your head, because it was a peachy left hook.
Yeah, and now I know the next fight we're going to talk about. I know this is a guy you'll be glad to have seen getting the win. Obviously, Aaron Abbey against Gerardo Fani. It never sounds right when a Scottish person says that second name, does it? No? It just does not sound right. But obviously, Aaron getting a second round submission. Now, I'll just stick with his first name. Gerardo's obviously coming off a couple of good wins as well. Obviously, he beat Liam Gittins, beat Conor Hignett. So his last loss was to Jack Cartwright. So, I mean, this is a big win for Aaron, right?
It's a massive one. That's a fight. Obviously, we've got fighters in that division. That's a fight not a lot of people wanted.
Yeah.
Gerardo's been starching people. He's a violent guy for that weight. I've been at his last couple of fights, and I've seen Conor Hignett wasn't right after that fight. Like he proper hurt him. I can remember seeing Conor backstage, and it's not nice seeing these kids like that after fights. And then his next fight after that again was a violent knockout, and I was worried, not worried for Aaron, but I was definitely concerned. Like you kind of know the story with that kid. He's been on here talking and stuff. He's a brilliant kid, and what he's been through and stuff like that's absolutely unbelievable. But I was like, this is going to be a big ask for Aaron. He's not as big as him. He's not as explosive. He hit so hard at Gerardo Fani, and then Aaron just came out and put on an absolute masterclass, man. He was absolutely flawless. For bell to bell, it was unbelievable. It's so hard to do that as well. Like it's it doesn't happen that often, and that was the best that kid's looked, man. He looked good against Samir Fadin. He obviously had the loss to Sam Creasy and get bullied a bit off Sam wrestling and stuff, but what an absolute, even everybody talks about game plans and shit, like game plans mean absolutely hee-haw without execution, and Aaron came out and put everyone together absolutely perfect, and that was the best performance of the weekend for me, just because I think I said this on maybe Carol Prince or Arms thingy. It's like he made a very, very dangerous guy look harmless. It's like when people talking about fighting when Fury fought Deontay Wilder. It's like these bombs. You need to watch these bombs and stuff like that. And it's like he's just fucking sent in the bomb squad and defused the fucker. It was unbelievable. And look, proper happy watching it for a man, because I really thought if Gerardo Fanny hits Aaron, just even the size difference and stuff like that, he could be in trouble, and he never took any damage. He looked great.
Yeah. Was that? Do you think this was one of the bigger upsets in the cards? Because you've got to imagine that. I mean, Aaron is obviously a great fighter. There's no two ways about it. But leading into this fight, Gerardo Fanny was a heavy favourite.
Just the way Gerardo Fanny's been hurt. It's not even just beating people; he's been hurting people. Do you know what I mean? No, at that weight class, it doesn't happen that much, man. It's like it's different at lightweight and welterweight and up. It's like knockouts and stuff like that they're more frequent. Like you hardly see them at flyweight like that. So it probably was. I think a lot of Aaron and I actually said like nobody wanted this fight and I wanted it. I don't know if they've maybe seen something in Gerardo Fanny, but what a performance, man! It was unbelievable. And just so happy for him. But the skill it takes and the composure that to pull that off with that amount of pressure, and knowing that if you make one mistake and this guy lands something on me, it's going to change the outcome of everything. It's
one of the fights as well. It was a high risk fight for Aaron, but with the high risk fights, there's high rewards, and it's went perfectly for him. So well done to him. And like I say, he's been on the show. His story's incredible, and it's great to see him getting a win like that, because that's the biggest win in his career, and that's a massive win for him.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully it keeps pushing him forward as well.
Right, so moving on to obviously the Cagewarriors main event. This was for the middleweight title. We had Christian Leroy Duncan coming into the fight 5-0, and Jeta Milan, who was coming into the fight, I believe he was 8-0 coming into the fight. Christian Leroy Duncan obviously gets the victory in round 3. So I mean, looking at the Cagewarriors middleweight champion Christian Leroy Duncan, give me your thoughts on him as a fighter and what the future may hold for him.
He'll be in the UFC, I think. Maybe one defence at most if he doesn't go. But being middleweight, there's not a lot of them about. So the nature of that finish with the flying knee as well, I wouldn't be surprised if his next fight's in the UFC. It doesn't seem like the type of guy that will go asking for the UFC. He's been we were in a couple of shows with that guy. He was in our changing room a couple of times, and he's not a normal fighter. The first thing you notice about him is he's massive at the weight. He's big. He is an absolute super athletic dude as well. He's very, very well trained. He's coached by a guy called Mark Weir, who has been one of the very first UK guys in the UFC. He knows exactly what he wants to do. That guy, he's got a very, very good game. He's dangerous everywhere. And if you watch that fight, I think the guy who was fighting the champion was the French boy, was known as being a very good wrestler. And Christian Leroy Duncan let him wrestle the first round, and it looks like he almost gave him that first round to get a feel for him and stuff like that. And then he started taking over. He started defending the takedowns better, and then he started hurting him with strikes. And it got to a point about 6 or 7 minutes in where the writing was on the wall. I think you could see the French guy can't get the takedowns anymore, and he can't hang with this guy. He's striking. And it looked like the inevitable was coming, which eventually is what happened. And that guy's got some spectacular wins. Christian Leroy Duncan, like he's an exceptional talent. He's a massive prospect. I don't know what age he is, but he's very, very good now.
Yeah, no, good way to cap off the card as well. And again, it's just the prospects we're seeing at close-weight divisions in the UK at the moment is fantastic. Obviously, especially after the UFC London card, which was amazing for the British MMA, seeing some contenders rising there, and then we're seeing guys like him look bound for the UFC. And it's a perfect way to segue into this week's coming UFC card. So obviously a massive card coming up, obviously headlined by Alexander Volkanovski and the Korean zombie himself, Jang Sung-kyung. So UFC 273, lots of good fights on that. We'll jump over the main card. I just want to quickly mention one guy who's fighting. He'll be headlining the prelim cards, Ian Garry, against Darian Weeks. Another big opportunity for Ian Garry to showcase his skills here.
I think so. I think the fact they put him as the main prelim shows you what direction he'll try to take that kid. He seems to have the person. He's got that kind of McGregor-esque, or he's trying to be McGregor-esque kind of personality. He's definitely got this kind of skill set to back it up for his run at Cagewarriors. We've seen that with the fights and stuff. I think he didn't look great in his debut. We talked about this before. The finish was spectacular, but he didn't look great against a guy that you would have bet on him beating anyway. I think they've gave him a very, very slight increase in level of competition. I think this guy's only had 5 fights or something, but it's not like a massive threat for him, which is exactly what he needs. He doesn't need thrown to the wolves straight away. So it'll be interesting to see how he is. I think he'll be better than what he showed in his last outing. Even you take that finish away for the equation, he just didn't look comfortable. And it'll be interesting to see where he is on Saturday night. So I think he'll get the job done. I think I think if he doesn't get the finish, or it might kind of stall a wee bit the hype on him. I think the UFC will be wanting him finishing guys with the ability he's got with his punching and even his high kicks and stuff like that. I wouldn't be surprised if he knocks the guy out. But it'll be interesting to see if he looks a bit more comfortable in that big cage this time compared to how he was the last time.
Yeah, and then moving on, obviously the fight kicking off the UFC 273 main card. Definitely has some European interest. We've just discussed Cagewarriors, so we'll get Mark Madsden against Vince Pichel. Obviously Madsden's undefeated professional. He's a guy who's come through the Cagewarriors Academy in Denmark. He's come through Cagewarriors. This will be his fourth fight in the UFC. Obviously, that win against Clay Guida is Clay's a bit long in the tooth now, but that is a big win nonetheless, and a big name, and I guess every guy wants that, a name like that, and obviously win against Austin Hubbard. How do you see the fight going? It's a big opportunity. This guy looks like he's got massive amounts of potential.
I think this is his hardest fight to date, by a good stretch. You mentioned Guida there, but Marsden's obviously an Olympic medalist wrestler. He's an exceptionally talented Greco-Roman wrestler. He's put together quite a good team back home. He's got good guys from him, but I think this is definitely the hardest fight he's had to date. I think it's a guy, if he makes mistakes, can hurt him. So he'll definitely need to be on point to get the win. It's a good fight. It's one of the better fights on the card, actually. And a lot of guys are kind of sleeping on it, but it'll be interesting to see if he can take. It's almost like if he wins this, it might push him maybe closer to some top 15 guys or something. So it's just kind of the next step for the guy. Good matchmaking again, because the guy he's fighting is no slouch.
Yeah, and the two of them are relatively close in the rankings. Two of them are on a good winning streak in the UFC as well. I think they're sort of run about that 20th and there, I think 29th and 25th or something like that in the rankings. So definitely a good fight. and a good way to kick off the main cards. And just moving on, then we've got Mackenzie Dern. She's ranked number 5th in the division, and Tisha Torres. I think she's ranked number 8. Obviously, Tisha Torres is a veteran in the division. Mackenzie Dern's coming for that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu background. How do you see this one? How do you see this one going? Where do you see the fight being won or lost for either fighter?
I think Tisha's going to move around her, step in and can sting her with strikes and just stay away from her. I think.
Yeah.
If Mackenzie can get a hold of her, obviously she can cause her problems. But Tisha's movement's better than anybody Mackenzie's fought before. Mackenzie's also got into that weird thing of just kind of wading forward, throwing big punches. She looked like she made some improvements. She was striking up until her last fight, and then she didn't look too great in that last fight. So it's Mackenzie there needs 30 seconds on the ground and she can submit any of the girls. I'd imagine Tisha's spent a whole lot of time on her submission defence. She's obviously been running about some of the best female grapplers in the world through her time at ATT and whatever team she's at now, but I can see that going to points. I think Tisha's just going to outpoint her on the feet. She'll not take any risk. She'll just kick her nice and long, step in, box her up a wee bit and move away, and you should see a speed difference in this fight. Tisha's fast. Quick feet, quick hands, and unless she makes a mistake and stands in a spot that she's not meant to stand in for a split second too long, she should be too quick for Dern. But again, that level of jiu-jitsu she's got, it's like an equaliser. Do you know what I mean? She needs Tisha to make one mistake and she'll sub her, whether it's the mount or the back.
Yeah, and moving on, I almost feel like this is the most talked about fight in the card, even though we've got 2 title fights above it, with the whole Smash Brothers and all that, with Darren Till being in the equation with Kamzat, and that is a massive fight though. It's an interesting one. Obviously Gilbert Burns is fought for the title, he's an amazing fighter. The odds in this fight are crazy. I think Kamzat is such a heavy favourite going into it. But this is definitely his toughest test to date. There's no question about that, right?
Aye, by a good bit, by a big bit. But at the same time, the bookies are not really often that wrong. The big factor for me with this is Gilbert Burns used to fight a lightweight, and Chimaev is probably the biggest welterweight in that division. He's already fought at middleweight in the UFC. He'll end up at middleweight eventually. And wait till you see the size difference when the two of them are together at the face-offs and stuff. It's going to be massive. And as much as people try and sell you that shit about martial arts helping smaller guys beat big guys and stuff like that, it's only to a certain degree. So the disparity in skill difference between these two guys is not not that massive, but the size difference is incredible. So as much as Gilbert Burns is a world class fighter, I think he's maybe ranked number 2 in the world at welter. Three. So he's fighting the biggest guy he's probably ever fought to date, who he's not been past the first round. He's killing everybody so far. But what I want to see with this fight is I want to see it go past a round first and foremost. I think I want to see if Burns can drag him out a wee bit. I think Kamzat's going to win regardless. Burns has got some big punching and stuff like that. But it just seems like with him, every time he takes that next step, he falls a wee bit short. I think the UFC is just using him as not a stepping stone, but he's using him just to get Kamzat right into the title picture straight away.
That's what it feels like to me, and I was going to say that. It almost feels like this fight's been set up so that if Kamzat comes through it, which many think he will, and I would tend to think he will myself, but it almost feels like they're saying, right, if beating Gilbert Burns, he's number 3. Almost Usman, who's been kind of putting the narrative out there that Kamzat needs to beat certain guys before he fights him. But if he beats him, the argument doesn't really work anymore, and almost like the UFC knows that.
Aye, it fast tracks him into the title picture straight away. If you're being honest, the level of competition he's fought in the UFC has not been that high. And this is a jump up for him, but he's definitely more than ready for it. He needs a fight like this. It would be funny if Gilbert Burns won, and Gilbert Burns definitely can win. But he can definitely get him either with strikes or submissions and stuff. But it's just that physicality, trying to, especially when it's a wrestler who knows how to use it, and even his striking with his reach and stuff like that is. Like Gilbert Burns struggled on the feet with Dan Hooker. And this is a different proposition altogether with the size and the power, and Kamzat looks fast as well, man. So I don't think, as much as it could be competitive on paper, I think it's going to be a bad night for Gilbert Burns.
Yeah. Is it almost looking like in that division? Because right now, to me, it feels like Kamzat Chimaev is the most popular guy in the division, and that's including the champion. He seems to be garnering the most attention from not just MMA fans, but out with that. Is it almost, it looks like the only person that may be a challenge for him in the division is the champion because of the size, the physicality. Because Usman is not a small welterweight himself. He's a big welterweight. Shown in the past, his wrestling's brilliant as well. Maybe Kamzat has the edge here, but also Usman's jab especially is a serious weapon.
I think so, man. And then obviously Covington as well. I think Covington and Kamzat are an interesting fight as well, just because of the wrestling pedigree. But more important, Covington's tough, and he's also got an absolute engine in him. Like, he just doesn't get tired. So, but he's definitely getting built up as the next big superstar. And he's doing everything right. Like you need to back that up with the performances when you're going out and blasting everybody away and around. It's easy to make the guy out to be a superstar, but he's saying all the right stuff. He's got the right image. He's got the shit going on now with Till, and he's quite a funny guy and stuff like that. He's easy to sell. He's very easy to sell. And
by all accounts, the guy is a fucking workhorse as well. The guy works. He's no just like, I heard a quote from, who was it? It was actually from Peter Yan, who said, with all the tension Kamzat Chimaev gets, it would be easier for him to take his foot off the gas, but he commented on how hard the guy works. Just the other thing, when we're speaking about obviously the Covington thing, it kind of almost feels to me, and I'm playing hypotheticals here, which I do all the time obviously, but feels to me like the Covington fight won't happen, because if you're looking at it from Covington's point of view, his aim is another title shot. So probably from his point of view, he'd rather see somebody like Chimaev get in and potentially dethrone Usman, and that opens things up for him to make a run back at the title, rather than potentially looking at fighting like Dustin Poirier or potentially even try to make 155, which I don't know if it would be possible for him.
I think Covington, if you let him pick, he wants to fight Usman straight away, because I think he probably thinks he could beat him still. Nah, he'll need to go and beat. He'll need to beat 2 or 3 guys. Obviously, Usman's got Leon next, so I think what you're looking at is, if Kamzat wins big, like first round, second round stoppage, big performance and stuff, then he's probably going to get the title shot next. I think if it's a bit closer, then they might make him fight Covington or somebody else even. But I think he'll get a stoppage. He'll look good, and it puts him right in position. They'll have him cage side for Usman versus Leon, and then fight the winner of that.
Yeah. If nothing else, the welterweight divisions, Kamzat's made it that bit more interesting. Because it's almost like, this is my own bad, I'm almost forgetting about Liam Edwards, because I'm getting so caught up with Kamzat, because that's I know Usman and Lee Edwards have fought before, but that's no gimme fight for anybody, Leo Edwards.
Nah, he's exceptionally good, but it shows you the difference between a guy like Leon, who hardly speaks, and he's on an 8 or a 9 fight winning streak, whereas Kamzat, who's fucking all over the place, and he can back it up, which is also the main thing. But it just shows you how the business side of it works. There's some good fights there, man. I think he'll be champion by the end of the year, and then I think he'll probably be looking at going up to middleweight, and look at him to win the 2 belts at the same time.
Yeah, and then moving on, we go into the first of the 2 title fights. So Aljamain Sterling and Peter Yan. Now, this is an interesting one, just purely based on the backstory. Peter Yan is an exceptional fighter who made a silly mistake in the last fight. These two, it was obviously a while ago because Sterling has went away and got neck surgery and stuff. So it was disqualification. Sterling got the belt via that, and since obviously didn't accept the belt initially, but then he's kind of almost went full WWE heel Sterling, the way he's then just thought, fuck it. But I think the consensus here is that Peter Yan is still the favourite, because he looks special.
What you've got with this card at the weekend is the proven 2 best fighters in the sport with Yan and Volkanovski, and then this upstart with Khamzat, who's potentially going to go on and become the next best fighter in the sport, and you've got them fighting one after another, which is that's the exciting thing about this card. The top 3 fights, you don't need an undercard with that, so you put the 3 fights on. That's what you need. Yeah. But I think out of the 3 fights, this one's the most competitive. I think Yan wins. And he looked very comfortable in that first fight. But Aljamain Sterling is no mug, man. This is a competitive fight. He's probably one of the best back takers in the sport. I think he's probably went away and put in a shit ton of work knowing what's coming. He knows he's got Peter Yan. Jan's obviously had the Sandhagen fight and looked great again. But I have Peter Yan winning this again. I don't think it'll be mega comfortable. He's going to have to fight to establish himself with this, and Aljamain Sterling is going to make him work a fair bit. And I think it'll be a good fight, man. I think the needling and stuff like that will probably bring out the best in both of them. And they do not want to lose to each other. Do you know what I mean? You can tell they don't like each other. It's going to be a good fight. And if Yan makes any mistakes, Aljamain will capitalise on it, and vice versa. So it's basically going to be who can get going first there, and who can find their spots, and who can get the game plan and whatever else. And it's an exceptional good fight. That's a lot of people are overlooking still. And hopefully Peter Yan hasn't, because if he does and Sterling turns up, he could cause him serious problems. You've seen what Sterling done with Sandhagen. Like he's a dangerous guy.
Yeah, and that leads us into obviously the main event. So I quite like this. I just like the fact that obviously it's through an injury with Max Holloway, the Green Zombie's got a title shot against Alexander Volkanovski. Green Zombie as well is obviously now training with Henry Cejudo. How much your impact it makes, I don't know. I mean, I think you'll be hard pushed to find anyone that will pick the Green Zombie to win this fight, just because of how good Alexander Volkanovski is. And I almost feel like in that last fight against Brian Ortega, especially when he was in that choke, he showed something that maybe we hadn't seen before in fights. But Alexander Volkanovski is definitely, like you say, he is the best featherweight on the planet. Great to see the Green Zombie get a shot at the title, but I've tried to think of a way he could win, and I can't see past Volkanovski in this one. I just feel he's got too much. He's just too good everywhere.
It's actually a mismatch, if you're being honest. I don't know how far down the pecking order they had to go to come up with a Korean Zombie for him. But
yeah, he's sitting like fifth in the rankings or something like that.
So he's maybe the first guy in the rankings available, but Volkanovski's in the prime of his career right now. He's exceptionally good everywhere. His track record, he's beat the best featherweights in all time with Aldo and Holloway. The second Holloway fight is arguable. I thought Holloway won that fight, but whereas Korean Zombies has never looked the same since he came back for that military service. he's exciting, but he's not going to beat Volkanovski. There's no, like you say, there's no way you can picture in your mind how he beats him. He's not going to knock him out. No. He's not going to sub him, and he's definitely not going to outpoint him. I think Korean Zombie seems to be he's declining physically and stuff. He's had some bad knockouts, he's some bad performances. Even going back to
well, right?
He's paying the price for that now, which is how it works. And Volkanovski's just, his fight IQ and his all-round game is just far too much for him, man. He can figure out where to put Korean Zombie, and he can beat him just about anywhere he wants. And even if you match it physicality, Volkanovski's probably the most physical featherweight you've ever seen.
He looks like he doesn't look like he's tired as well. He's gas tank insane. And you saw him doing it against he may even, I mean, his low kicks are really good as well. So I know that Korean Zombie's the most mobile guy. It's the reason he's called the Korean Zombie, because of the way he fights. It's just, I just don't see the title changing hands in this one. I feel like it's very, very unlikely.
It would be one of the biggest upsets in the UFC history, I think, because, like I said, it is a mismatch. They should have had Jan and Sterling as the main event, and this one under it. The only guy I can see beating Volkanovski's Holloway. No other featherweight's going to get him. For the current crop of guys, maybe Arnold Allen. You don't know, could give him some different problems. He's a big physical kid at featherweight as well. But for what I've seen of everybody so far, the only guy that I can see beating him would be Holloway. And I think he defends his belt pretty easily on Saturday.
Yeah, and you'd feel if you're the Korean Zombie, the sort of talk throughout his camp will probably be it's unlikely he probably wouldn't have got a shot, circumstances being different, but he's got the shot, so it's a case of just, throw everything at it. And he's a fighter that throws caution to the wind anyway. We've seen that in the past, so it is unlikely though that there's an upset in this one. I don't see it, but again, it's why we tune in and watch sport, because anything can happen.
Zombie actually did look pretty good against that guy Rodriguez, if I remember right. But,
then he got caught with that. I was like, elbow.
But Volkanovski's a different proposition altogether.
Yeah, well, he's a chip. You sometimes find that almost like it's kind of like some other divisions where it, like, maybe not so much welterweight now because he calms that, and then obviously Liam come through. But for the consensus in the featherweight division, there was Usman, Covington, and the rest. And it kind of feels like it's you know what I mean, it's Volkanovski, Holloway, and the rest.
Volkanovski's probably going to end up going up, I think, unless, Cejudo was talking about coming back and fighting him, but he's not going to lose him. I'll be very, very surprised if he loses on Kane Saturday. You kind of have to go on past evidence of recent fights and recent form and stuff like that. And Volkanovski is just absolutely at the pinnacle of his career right now.
Yeah, and so just one last question then, which fight of the night, what's the one fight we can't miss on this card?
It's probably Kamzat, and it's got to be. It's got to be, man. I think it's his hardest fight to date, but it's not even. It's more like you're going to tune in to see how he wins type of thing. It's like, remember watching Mike Tyson back in the day? It's like you're not tuning in to see how competitive something is. You're just like, how's he going to destroy this guy? And is there a chance that he can fuck up? But it must be him. I think if from a technical standpoint, it's probably going to be the Peter Yan fight. But most of the eyes in that, the fight that stands out on paper is the Kamzat one.
Do you think it is Darmtill in the corner for this one?
He is, apparently, because he was meant to be at that convention in Manchester at the weekend and withdrew for it to stay in America to corner, apparently.
That's brilliant. Right, so we'll wrap up in this. So obviously UFC 273 coming this Saturday. And as always, guys, if you like the show, like, subscribe, follow us on all the social media channels. That's everything from us.